Opportunities like this don't come around often, but when they do, the ones that act quickly are the ones that gain and get the benefits quicker. Not every tender is ideal for your business. Market engagement events help you to influence the council. This tender is the Emergency Accommodation provision in London Borough of Hackney. For those that don't know me, my name is Divine. I'm the founder of Assured Bid. We help agencies to find government tenders and win these tenders, because this is essentially where your business is going to get sustainable growth. For those who are not familiar with emergency accommodation, just to get this right off the bat, this essentially is where you will need to provide and supply accommodation to individuals or a group of individuals for a short-term period of time. Accommodation here could be hotels, it could be a bed and breakfast, it could be guest houses, it could be bungalows, it could be shared houses, whatever the case is. The property should be able to shelter and house individuals for a short-term period. Now, the types of individuals or the needs of individuals would vary. It could be individuals fleeing domestic abuse, it could be asylum seekers awaiting their Home Office visa to be granted, it could be individuals who have been hospitalized and can no longer access their permanent house for a short-term period. Key being short-term period. It could be months, weeks, or days. So in saying that, you would understand that there are going to be potentially a lot of turnover in terms of tenants in and tenants out. So you need to be able to accommodate this as well. So in this tender, it's already been open. So it initially went live in May 2025, and they're looking to keep it open until 2028. So depending on when you're watching this, it's currently still open for you to bid for if you can provide the services required, which is what we're going to cover on this video. Like I mentioned already, this essentially is for the provision of emergency accommodation. Now we understand what emergency accommodation is. We already understand the services that is required, but let's break it down into a little bit more detail on this tender specifically. Now, in terms of the lots, this tender has been split into two lots. Lot 1 is for block bookings. This essentially is where you can provide a certain number of units to the council for a period of time. Now, the council here can take your accommodation or your units. It could be a number of units, 5, 10, 15, however many units you can supply to the council. They can take this and give you a set guaranteed rate every single month. This is irrespective of if the units are being utilized or not, if they are vacant or not. Irrespective of this, the council are going to give you exactly what the pre-agreed amount is for the period of time that was in the contract for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the term is. However, whilst this has the benefit of you having sustainable income, you know exactly what you're going to get, sustainable and predictable income every single month for how long you're going to get it for. In the other side, this is very commonly where you may also have to take a lower rate for the most part. So the rates here may not be as high as if it was a spot purchase, which essentially is what Lot 2 is. Now, for those who understand spot purchase, this essentially is, in this case, where there will be ad hoc, immediate demand for a property or a unit for this individual in this location. If you can provide that, if you have that available at that time, that is where the council will pay you for the term that the council has that property for, meaning that period where the tenant is residing in that property. However, when the tenant leaves, the council are no longer obligated or obliged to pay you for that particular unit or that property. So we can understand the differences here. Whilst you have to deal with the void period in the meantime where the council are not utilizing property, when they are utilizing property, you often commonly will get a higher rate in respect or in contrast to the block booking. So again, you can apply to supply or provide your services in either the block bookings or the spot purchase or both. In terms of the property standards, please understand that just having accommodation or property alone will not simply cut it, because there are specifics that property or that unit needs to meet according to the specifications of the tender. For example, the units need to have lockable rooms. Secondly, and also very important if you're providing property types such as HMOs, ideally you want each room to be en suite, or at the very minimum, each tenant or each individual should have access to their own single-use bathroom and toilet. So this has a huge emphasis on self-contained units for each individual. But beyond that, you should have central heating. You should also have smoke alarms in the property as well. Now, beyond just the property, you need to also understand that there are services you are required to provide here. So this would involve weekly cleaning, so weekly lining and bedding change as well. You need to provide fridge, basic toiletries as well, kettles, etc. Because bear in mind that these individuals are going to be there for a short-term period. So we need to make this not just habitable for them, but actually in a very good living condition with all the basic necessities ready and usable for them on a consistent basis. The property also needs to be within Hackney or its borders. So if you've got these types of properties and they are not within the border of Hackney, it will not be considered here. So don't waste your time bidding because you've got properties in London generally and you believe it can be used here. The guideline is it needs to be in Hackney or the borders of Hackney. So without just simply focusing on the look and the physical representation of the property, we need to also ensure that the property has the adequate documentations, one of them being the insurance. So your property needs to be insured to provide the services required on this tender. So which will be temporary accommodation and placements. So you need to have the adequate insurance for this. Otherwise, your property and your bid will also be rejected as well. Does this tender make sense for you? Before you can make that decision, you need to understand the pricing. Now, the positive you could say on this one is that they have 100% flexibility for suppliers on pricing, meaning that you as a provider here can tell the council in your pricing schedule, which is going to be in the bid, how much you're going to take for the provision of the units on a nightly basis. So you can do this depending on the lots you're going to be bidding for, if that's lot 1, but also in lot 2. But first of all, ensure that you conduct the appropriate analysis for your business. Consider all the expenses we talked about here based on the services you'll be required to deliver, all the bills and the maintenance that all fall under your business. Also, especially the wages, because you at the very minimum need to be paying your staff the national minimum living wage as well. So based on this, you can also then dictate how much you're going to accept for the provision of this service in your bid, which is going to be in the pricing schedule, which you need to make sure you complete when you're submitting your bid. Some other documentations you need to be considering in the financials. You need to ensure that you've submitted at least 1 year account for your business, which is the most recent year for your business. If your business has been operating for at least a year. If not, there are also alternatives you can submit, but that alternative is not going to be forecast. So they did not accept financial forecasts here as an alternative. Secondly, in terms of the other documentations, you need to have policies up to date. So your health and safety policy. You also need to ensure that you're submitted your electrical and gas safety certificate for your property as well. So like I said, irrespective of ensuring that you can provide the service, the accommodation, also think about all the supporting documentation that is needed here as well. Otherwise, your bid will likely fail. Again, in summary, this is a fantastic opportunity if you can provide accommodation, you can support the individuals here, you can provide the services required on this tender. Your business is an experienced and suitably qualified provider for these type of services, and you have the documentations to evidence this that we've just spoken about. Bear in mind that this is a tender that the council already spending over £1 million every single year on, and it's going to stay open until 2028. So if you can bid for this tender, you've analyzed the files and the criteria, then go ahead and bid for the opportunity. I'm going to be sharing more and similar tenders like this all across the country. So make sure that you actually like and subscribe, because you do not want to miss out on the tenders when I'm posting them.